Dinosaurs ruled for 150 million years. But if you judged their bodies like prototype machines, some designs barely passed the crash test. Gliding on leg wings so unstable that losing just 20% of lift turned you into prehistoric confetti? That was just the opening act. Today, we are putting evolution itself on trial, exposing boneheaded balance points, overbuilt armor, and tail clubs that worked right up until they did not. What if nature's most iconic giants were often one bad landing or muscle tear away from disaster? Dive in and decide for yourself which dinosaur solutions were brilliant hacks and which were cursed workarounds just waiting to fail. Comment your verdict and subscribe if you dare, because this court is now in session. Every court needs rules, and this one throws out the usual dinosaur hype in favor of cold-blooded engineering logic. If a dinosaur body looks like a prototype, it gets stress-tested like one. Every design faces three questions. First, can the structure actually hold up under its own weight and the forces it faces? That means bones, joints, and most humiliating of all, where the animal's balance point lands. If the center of mass is in the wrong place, it does not matter how cool the armor or wings look. The whole thing becomes a toppling hazard, not a survivor. Next comes performance. The dinosaur gets judged on whether it can do the job its fossil claims. Can it move, hunt, eat, or escape using the tools evolution gave it? If a 2-ton tail club cannot actually swing fast enough to break bones, or a gliding membrane cannot steer, that is a fail. This is where the numbers matter. Muscle leverage, speed, bite force, and even the range of motion in a joint. If the animal's own anatomy locks it out of its supposed lifestyle, that is a design oversight nature never fixed. Finally, there is cost. Every feature comes with a price tag, and evolution is a stingy accountant. Armor adds weight, sails and frills add heat load, and every extra kilogram demands more food. Some designs bet everything on a single trick, like putting all your savings into a gold-plated tail club, or a dorsal sail that doubles as a solar oven. Others spread the risk, but end up with a body that is just heavy enough to be slow and just weird enough to attract predators. If the energy budget, injury risk, or maintenance demands cross the line from worth it to why bother, that is a red flag. Each dinosaur gets a verdict card. Some designs are weird but effective, functional. Some work only if the universe cuts them slack, cursed. And then there are evolutionary war crime designs, so compromised they only survive in a tiny window of time or place. The balance point is the silent judge in all this. If the animal's mass is distributed so it can stand, move, and fight without constant disaster, it passes the first test. If not, the rest is just evolutionary window dressing. The fun part is you get to play engineer too. Every time you see a dinosaur design, ask yourself, does this pass the structure, performance, and cost tests? Or is it a walking recall notice just waiting for the next extinction event? Drop your verdict in the comments and subscribe if you want to see more fossils put through the ringer. Up next, the first defendant, a glider with wings in all the wrong places. Sharovipteryx is what happens when evolution hands in the group project at 3 in the morning and hopes no one checks the math. This Triassic glider, about 25 centimeters long, built its entire flight plan around one jaw-dropping gamble: wings not on the arms, but stretched between the hind legs and tail. Imagine designing a plane with the wings glued to the back wheels. That is Sharovipteryx, a flying triangle with its main lift surface behind the center of mass, and a pair of tiny, almost apologetic forelimbs up front. The picture screams, and the bones tell the story. Call it a design flaw. Now, the numbers. In the best case, Sharovipteryx could manage a glide ratio of 2 to 4 to 1. That means for every 1 meter it dropped, it might travel 2 to 4 meters forward. Not exactly a barnstormer. Think paper airplane, not albatross. And that is only if the membranes were perfectly intact and the animal hit the launch just right. Because here is the real kicker. With the wings so far back, the center of lift sat behind the body balance point. That is a recipe for a nosedive, unless the tail and the forelimbs worked overtime to keep the snout up. Pitch control was not a luxury, it was a full-time job. No room for error. The margin for error was razor thin. A 20% loss of lift, perhaps from a torn membrane after a close call with a predator or a rough brush with a branch, and the glide radius collapsed. Suddenly, the turning radius dropped below 1 meter. That is not a gentle bank, that is a death spiral. One membrane tear and Sharovipteryx became a dart with no steering, headed wherever gravity wanted. There was no backup system, no redundancy. Just a hope and a prayer that both legs and the tail membrane stayed intact until touchdown. Prototype, not redundant. Turning was not much better. With the gliding surface locked between the hips and ankles, Sharovipteryx could not flare out, twist, or fold its wings like a bird or a bat. Evasive maneuvers were basically falling faster. The best it could do was tweak its tail or shift a forelimb, maybe by a few degrees of correction. If you are banking on split-second agility to dodge a hungry predator, this design is a liability. No grace, only risk. Verdict time. Sharovipteryx was physically flyable, just barely. It was a glider that only worked under specific, forgiving conditions. No gusty winds, no hungry neighbors, no membrane mishaps. In engineering terms, this is a prototype that passed the wind tunnel test by accident and got shipped straight to production anyway. Cursed. It is the kind of design that makes you want to call human resources, but you cannot, because the whole department just glided into a tree. If you love the leg wing disaster, now is your chance to defend it in the comments. Tell us why you think this oddball worked, or why you would have redesigned it. And if you want more forensic roasts of evolutionary design fails with the receipts, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next case, which makes Sharovipteryx look tame by comparison. Stegosaurus is the dinosaur equivalent of a concept car that nobody asked for, but everyone remembers. 2 tons of bony hardware sit mostly above the engine room, which is to say the guts and legs carrying everything else. Those famous plates, each one a billboard of evolutionary excess, add up to a surface area of between 1 and 2 square meters. That is more real estate than most coffee tables, welded to a spine that already has enough trouble keeping the body upright. Slice a plate open and you find a maze of vascular canals, like a radiator crossed with a plumbing project gone rogue. Blood coursed through those channels, which hints at functions beyond simple armor. Some paleontologists favor a heat exchange system, pumping blood into the plates to dump excess heat. Others see big advertising, using size and color to attract mates or intimidate rivals. Whatever the plates did, they had a cost. All that mass perched high on the back shifted the center of gravity up and back. This is not just a posture quirk, it is a stability nightmare. Every step required balance corrections, and a stumble risked turning the whole animal into a Jurassic domino. The plates also hurt movement. They caught wind like sails, increasing drag and making a slow-moving browser even less aerodynamic. Imagine trying to outpace a predator with a pair of patio umbrellas bolted to your spine. Not happening. The deeper vulnerability was dependence. If plates cracked, became infected, or overheated, the energy and survival costs spiked. The skull up front is laughably small, barely built to manage the nervous work needed to swing that tail effectively. The tail, with its spiked thagomizer, was the last line of defense. If hips muscles, or the tail itself were damaged, the whole defensive system could fail. From a paleontological and engineering perspective, Stegosaurus looks functional but borderline cursed. It worked well enough in its niche, but it bet a lot on big, visible hardware that could become a liability under stress. Still, the commitment is impressive. Evolution invested in bone, blood supply, and display potential for an animal that spent much of its life feeding low to the ground. If you would keep the plates in your own redesign, or strip them off for a leaner Stegosaur, drop your verdict in the comments. And if you want to hear more dinosaurs put through this kind of structural audit, subscribe for the next round of evolutionary product recalls. Ankylosaurs carried their armor everywhere, never able to set it down. Their bodies were encased in a mosaic of osteoderms, bony plates welded into the skin from nose to tail. This was not decorative. Computed tomography scans and fossil reconstructions show that armor alone made up 30 to 40% of their total body mass. Imagine a dinosaur forced to haul a second, smaller dinosaur fused to its back every hour of its life. There was no escape from the load, no pause for relief. The cost of this defense was high. Bone is unforgivingly heavy, and ankylosaurs went further than surface plating. Their vertebrae fused into a rigid spine, trading flexibility for sheer resistance. The neck and torso became solid beams, perfect for absorbing impact, but disastrous for agility. Every step meant dragging an extra ton or more, while the metabolic price kept climbing. Research estimates that just carrying the armor could raise daily energy needs by 15 to 25%. For an animal built like a tank, that meant a constant search for food to fuel a slow-motion existence. At the tail end, waited the Ankylosaur signature club, a massive mass of bone sometimes weighing as much as 65 kilograms. When swung, it could deliver between 1,000 and 10,000 joules of kinetic energy, enough to break bone, enough to make any predator think twice. Fossils reveal the aftermath, healed dents and fractures in armor and club alike, proof of real battles. These weapons worked, but only if the attacker came from behind and the Ankylosaur had room to swing. Cornered or ambushed, the club was less effective, and the armor alone had to hold. Mobility was the sacrifice. Fused spines and dense armor meant no sprinting, no sharp turns, no climbing out of trouble. Ankylosaurs could not dodge or flee. Their best defense was to dig in and trust the armor to outlast whatever tried to break through. This was a strategy that put everything on the line for survivability, at the expense of speed and adaptability. In the end, Ankylosaurs became functional specialists, living tanks perfectly designed for defense, but locked into a single way of life. Their armor and weaponry paid off, but only as long as the world around them stayed predictable. Tell us in the comments which dinosaur you think is the most cursed design, and which one you would rescue as a dinosaur engineer. Subscribe for more forensic paleontology and roast reviews of prehistoric design. Spinosaurus stands as a cautionary tale in evolutionary design. Its bones, first unearthed from the Kem beds of North Africa, painted a picture that seemed almost impossible. A crocodile-like skull, a towering sail, and legs oddly short for its size. For years, paleontologists debated its true nature, piecing together fragments lost and rediscovered, until a clearer image formed by the 2010 Spinosaurus was not just another predator, it was a semi-aquatic specialist, adapted for a life spent hunting in water. CT scans revealed a telling modification. Its limb bones were 10 to 15% denser than those of its land-dwelling relatives. This increase in bone density, a trait shared with diving birds and hippos, acted as built-in ballast, making it easier for Spinosaurus to sink below the surface and pursue prey. But this adaptation came with a price. Dense bones, while perfect for submerging, became a liability on land. Every extra kilogram slowed it down, and with its already short, thick legs, Spinosaurus was awkward and sluggish out of water. The animal had traded terrestrial agility for aquatic advantage, locking itself into a narrow ecological role. The real challenge lay in its dependence on a specific habitat. Geological evidence points to shallow, slow-moving rivers, typically 1 to 5 meters deep. Spinosaurus needed this narrow depth window to function. Too shallow, and its sail and body would be exposed, making it vulnerable. Too deep, and it risked losing contact with the riverbed, floating nose up, unbalanced and inefficient. Buoyancy models confirm it was not built for deep diving or graceful swimming. It could paddle and submerge, but always with the risk of tipping or stranding if water levels changed. On land, its center of mass was pulled forward by the skull and sail, making it unstable. In water, it was never truly at ease, a specialist trapped by its own design. Effective inside a very specific niche, risky everywhere else. If you had to give a verdict in the court of dinosaur engineering, would you call Spinosaurus a brilliant specialist or a cursed design? Tell us your verdict in the comments and subscribe for more forensic paleontology and ruthless design reviews. If there is one thing evolution loves more than a weird body plan, it is slapping on a flashy ornament and calling it a day. Enter the parade of over-engineered dinosaur accessories. Frills, sails, crests, and the kind of headgear that would bankrupt any sensible animal. Ceratopsian frills, for example, could add 20 to 30% to the total skull mass. Imagine hauling around an extra helmet the size of your own head every waking moment. These bony billboards were not just for show. They were thin-walled, riddled with blood vessels, and about as structurally sound as a porcelain sign in a windstorm. The costs pile up fast. More bone means more weight, more heat absorption, and more chances for something to snap at the worst possible moment. Frill punctures and healed fractures show up in 10 to 20% of ceratopsian fossils, proof that these display structures doubled as shields in a world where the audience bites back. But the real evolutionary gamble was not just in the hardware, it was in the behaviors that came with it. Take Pachycephalosaurs. Around 15 to 25% of their skulls show signs of trauma, bone thickening, cracks, and remodeling consistent with head-to-head combat. That is not a design flaw, that is a business model where the warranty only covers reproductive success. If you survive the season with your skull mostly in one piece, congratulations, you probably got to pass on your genes. If not, the fossil record remembers you as a cautionary tale. Modern animals are not immune to this logic. Deer break antlers in rutting season, bighorn sheep fracture skulls, and birds risk predation for a shot at mating glory. Dinosaurs just took these risks and scaled them up to catastrophic levels. The verdict? Functional but over budget for the ornaments, and behavioral war crimes for the rituals. Survival was optional, impressing the neighbors was mandatory. If you think you could engineer a safer way to win a date in the Cretaceous, drop your redesigns in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe for more evolutionary audits. Evolution never promised perfection. Every so-called design flaw is a fossilized reminder that nature prizes good enough over genius, even for the rulers of the Mesozoic. Today, algorithm-driven engineering faces the same brutal math. Function beats beauty, and compromise wins. So which feature would you fix first? Drop your verdict in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more prehistoric engineering drama.